set. Ian Bremmer, the president of the Eurasia Group and author of the book Superpower, Three Choices for America's Role in the World. Three choices, right?
Lots of choices.
Lots of choices. Let's talk about this trip. What defines success?
Well, if he can avoid being distracted by the problems at home, the trip's been set up to be successful. You know, almost every president goes to Canada or Mexico as their first stop, stalwart U.S. ally. Actually, Trump has difficulties with the leaders of both of those states, NAFTA negotiations, immigration, the wall. You know, clearly Trudeau has a very different lean politically than Trump. But the Saudi king and the Israeli PM are the two allies that individually most wanted to see the back of President Obama. So they're delighted that Trump won. They're delighted that Trump is going to their countries first, and they're ready to make this a big deal. It's all the pomp and circumstance. They'll treat him very well personally. The Saudis have no choice, and Netanyahu actually likes him, has a personal rapport with him and with the Trump family, as well as with Jared, and I think that that is going to go quite well, as long as he can avoid saying things off script and getting sucked back into the trauma that's swirling around him in Washington right now.
And I want to talk to you a little bit about that. As far as what you see as successful for America and the American people, beyond this perhaps being a successful personal trip for Donald Trump with the red carpet rolled out, how do you see that going? How do you think this will have actual impact on our foreign policy?
Well, look, it is true that Trump is very uninterested in having a more balanced Middle East foreign policy towards Iran and towards the traditional Gulf Arab monarchies and Israel. He opposed the Iran deal. He hasn't ripped it up. But, you know, the Saudis and Israelis didn't want him to really rip it up because ultimately that was just going to undermine the American position more than, and was going to bolster the Iranians, who were just going to end up developing and already produced a lot of oil. So I do think the fact that Trump can go in and say, we're going to work with you more closely on security, we're going to work with you in getting big arms deals done, we don't care about human rights abuses in Saudi Arabia, right? I mean, those are all the sorts of things that make it easier for the Saudis to do business with the U.S. I think that relation, and of course he just did bomb again some Syrians supporting the Syrian regime in the last 48 hours. The Russians today extremely aggravated about it, but the Saudis couldn't be happier the fact that the U.S. is doing more to show that they're willing to be on the Saudi side of these conflicts.
Do you think the timing of that has anything to do with this trip?
Sure. You know, I mean, I think they understood that if they were going to have a window of opportunity to whack someone that the Saudis would be happy with seeing whacked, this was a good time to do it.
I want to talk to you about the speech that we're expecting in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, of course, being the first big stop.
Yeah.
This speech has a lot of focus. There was focus, of course, in the language that President Trump has used now and in the past regarding radical Islamic terrorism. What are the risks or the opportunities in this speech?
Look, I think that there are more opportunities than risks in the sense that the Saudis are a completely safe audience for this. The king, the deputy crown prince, they want Trump to succeed. It's not like there are going to be demonstrations against Trump in a country like Saudi Arabia. It won't be allowed. So he's going there, he's talking about radical Islamic terror, and the Saudis are going to say, absolutely, we are on your side in the fight against radical Islamic terror. I think there are two issues here, though. First is, God forbid, terrorist attack during this trip while he is in the Islamic world against American assets in the region. Certainly that would be a huge win for the terrorists. That would cause a lot of outcry, right? Second point is, to what extent do we see the Saudis over time having bigger problems with the United States because of anti-Islamic policies? Their children go to school in the United States. They're getting less welcome. The TSA shakedowns, these sorts of things make the average Saudi prince feel a little bit more personally nervous about who Trump is and what he represents. The idea of a president like Trump going into the Islamic backyard and lecturing to them on Islam feels a little bit as it would to us if the Saudi king came to the U.S. and lectured us about separation of church and state. Right? It's not a natural thing to be done. It'll play well to Trump's base. There's no question. I'd be surprised if we're talking about the speech in a month's time.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't think so?
No, because I think that ultimately it's a speech that Trump doesn't, to the extent that Trump does well with speeches, it's when he doesn't go off script. And as a consequence, he looks presidential like he did in the joint address to Congress. But 2 weeks later, we weren't talking about it. There's bigger opportunity for him to go off script and cause trouble than there is for him to hit a home run with a speech.